I'm going to make a scientific experiment today, illustrating what would happen
Randy, you putting on the load again?
With the Colorado River for billions of years.
The scientific experiment is supposed to show, I don't know, something. Okay, we'll come back to it later. As we saw in my first video on Noah's flood, the distinct layers of different materials that make up the canyon must have been laid down at different times and in different environments. A single flood doesn't separate sediments into layers like this. Not only that, there are distinctive fossils in some of these layers which show they were laid down at different times in different environments. That doesn't stop Tom Vail, who runs creationist tours of the Grand Canyon, from trying to explain this in biblical terms. On his website, he points to the fossil evidence in just one small layer of rock as evidence that the entire sequence must have been laid down by a flood. Here's the evidence. There are fossil nautiloids at the bottom of the Red Wall limestone formation. That's here. For fossilization to occur, Vail writes, the subject must be buried catastrophically. Actually, that's not correct. In the case of nautiloids, what got buried and fossilized were the shells. And shells can sit on the seabed for years while the sediment slowly builds up around them. So Vail's conclusion that the Red Wall limestone must have been laid down very quickly can't be based on the fact that we find fossilized seashells there. In fact, if we look at what else we find in the Red Wall limestone, the opposite conclusion is inescapable. Because the Red Wall limestone also contains lots of coral, which we know forms very slowly in the stable environment of a shallow tropical sea. Did the flood deposit a whole load of sediment, then turn calm and tropical for a few hundred years, and then start up again? Not surprisingly, creationists tend to skip over the makeup of the Grand Canyon strata and concentrate on the carving of the canyon itself. So guess who's next?
Grand Canyon could not have been formed by the Colorado River.
I'm sorry, but Hovind is so good at spouting bullshit, it's impossible not to use a clip from him. So let's not keep everyone in suspense any longer. All together now.
Why couldn't it be formed by the Colorado River?
The top of Grand Canyon is higher than both ends. The river enters the canyon at 3,200 foot elevation. The top of the canyon's about 7,000 or 8,000 feet elevation. Rivers don't flow uphill.
Oh, give me a break. And here's young Eric Hovind preaching the same message his dad brainwashed into him, using groovy high-tech props.
The Colorado River exits the canyon 1,800 feet above sea level. It enters the canyon 2,800 feet above sea level. And the top of Grand Canyon is 7,000 feet above sea level. So you tell me, did the river flow uphill for millions of years to carve out the Grand Canyon? Or is it possible that the Grand Canyon is the result of Noah's flood?
Boy, are there really only two choices? Either water miraculously flows uphill, or an invisible being miraculously made a man out of clay and a woman out of a rib, and then launched a worldwide flood in order to drown most of their descendants. I'm more inclined to think water flows uphill, but faced with these two supernatural inanities, neither of them really appeals. I wonder if there's a third possibility. You know, something that has a natural explanation that's fairly easy to understand. I know. Let's see what the geologists say. Well, they don't have any trouble with this one at all. According to the evidence, the Colorado River meandered across the flat plateau and carved out a small valley. It cut deeper. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the plateau was uplifted. During each stage of uplift, the river backed up, making a deep channel, and quickly flowed over the top of the uplifted section. Then it just continued eroding the bedrock, deepening the canyon. Uplift and erosion. Haven't we been through this? Not once did the river ever have to flow uphill. Talking of groovy high-tech props, any luck with that experiment yet?
You can see this is taking a while.
Okay, kid, take a break and tell me why you have a problem with a river eroding a canyon. Why is this so impossible to understand?
And I've taken geology classes to know that the Grand Canyon would be impossible to have been made by the Colorado River because all rivers create deltas, and the Grand Canyon has no delta. Where the water goes into the Gulf of California, there is no delta, so you guys want to look that up?
Yeah, guys, let's look that up. Google images Colorado River Delta. So here's a picture of the Colorado River Delta. Here's another picture of the Colorado River Delta.
Where are the erosional rim-nose? Where's the delta? 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 Where's the delta?
No delta, just a small one.
A small one? According to a University of Arizona study, the Colorado River Delta contains about 10,000 cubic miles of sediment, but Pendleton is partly right. Even that's not the sum of all the material that's been eroded from the Colorado River basin. Like most river deltas, the Colorado River Delta has advanced as more and more alluvial deposits built up. Past deposits are found further north of the current delta on the Colorado's alluvial plain. And since the delta is also moving southwards along the San Andreas Fault, a lot of sediment has been deposited along the subsiding Salton Trough on the east edge of the Pacific Plate. Well, seeing what's plainly visible in front of your face has never been a creationist strong point. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many eligible golden crocoduck nominees. Here's Tom Vail again.
We see some very large folding in the canyon where sedimentary layers, which are laid down horizontally, have been curved or carved in big bends, some of them 300 feet tall. And this is done without cracking the rock. How do you do that with hard rock?
Take a rock, heat it up close to melting point, and bend it. Unknown to Tom Vail, laboratories do this all the time. There's even an apparatus designed to do it. Heat and pressure fold rocks, and heat and pressure are found in abundance during tectonic collisions deep underground, so it's hardly surprising that rocks subjected to these forces get folded and bent out of shape.
The water's filling it up, but it doesn't really look like it's cutting into the dirt.
Oh, for fuck's sake, come back to me when you're done. Ah, it's the Lugermeister again. Here he's trying to show how a flood could have carved out the Grand Canyon using the example of a mudflow from Mount St. Helens.
In 9 hours, while no one watched, overnight, the mudflow carved an integrated system of drainages over much of the valley and reopened the way to the Pacific. The drainages included at least 3 canyons 100 feet deep. One was nicknamed the Little Grand Canyon of the Toutle because it's a 1/40th scale model of the real Grand Canyon.
Well, of course it isn't. The only people who seem to be calling it the Little Grand Canyon of the Toutle when I Google the phrase are creationists. But thanks to Hovin for showing us what real flood erosion looks like. Here's a satellite photograph of the Toutle mudflow, the grey line in the middle of the picture. And here's the Grand Canyon. As you can see from the Toutle, when rushing water gouges out an erosion channel, it pretty much heads in a straight line. But even the massive body of water that supposedly punched out the Grand Canyon was much, much bigger. It seems to have decided on a very strange course. Here it comes, roaring ahead and tearing through the sediment. Then it decides to take a sharp left turn. Then it goes roaring ahead again. Oh, but then it slows down to make 2 sharp turns to the right and come back on itself. But now it's away. No, it's decided to take a sharp left turn and another left turn. Where's it going? Oh, it's away, racing through the sediment. It's slowed to a crawl now, and it's done more than a 360-degree turn here. No, another sharp left and another, and you have to wonder what was going through the mind of this very discerning body of water as it went on a scenic tour of the Colorado Plateau. Because we know from Kent Hovin's own example that floodwater doesn't behave like this. What does behave like this is water that goes a lot more slowly. This is the classic meandering pattern of rivers on flat land. We can see it today. And of course there's one other problem. Only an idiot would say that because water can carve erosion channels through soft mud in a matter of hours, it can do the same through hard layers of granite, schist, and quartzite.
As you guys can see, the hole that I dug right here with this oil water didn't increase in volume whatsoever. And over here, it dug through the entire ground. There was no real hole to it. It just tore up everything. So you guys can see that my theory that the Grand Canyon was created by Noah's flood, by the lake that existed after Noah's flood, is correct. And that is what created the Grand Canyon.